Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
Lake Baikal in Southern Siberia is the largest freshwater lake in the world. It contains more water than all of the North American Great Lakes combined and has a surface area slightly larger than Belgium. But what strange and exotic creatures might dwell in those depths? And what are we to make of declassified reports that some of those creatures are 10-foot tall bipeds in silver spacesuits? Join us on Aliens Explored as we dive headfirst into the mystery of Russia's giant underwater humanoids.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Aliens Explored, where we discuss the strange, mysterious and otherworldly. I'm one of your hosts, Stu Jackson.
And I'm your other host, Neil Kelly.
And it's an interesting one this week. We are going back to the 1980s, early 80s, 1982 to be precise, and over to Soviet Russia. I really hope not to try accents, despite being an actor.
You need to work on that one a bit. Mind you, I think most spy thrillers, they use pretty cod accents, don't they? As long as you talk a bit like that.
That's right, comrade. Okay, enough of that. So normally we talk about UFOs, but this time we're talking about USOs. Unidentified submerged objects,
which might also be UFOs that have become submerged. You know,
yes,
it came from outer space and also from the bottom of the sea. So.
Absolutely, and indeed. So what happened back in July 2009? Quite a lot of records from the Russian government were declassified. And in amongst them, you did have some interesting ones where you had a submarine encounter with a group of UFOs, for example, or be underwater, who then took off and went outwards. So you're absolutely right in what you're speculating there. But that's not what we're talking about this week, is it, Neil?
Well, I don't know.
Okay. I can tell you we are looking at an event in Siberia, in Lake Baikal.
Yeah.
I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Which I can tell you is the deepest freshwater lake in the world. It goes down to a depth of over 1,600 metres. So in this particular event, you've got 7 divers exploring it. So because of the cold temperatures, it's in Siberia after all, freezing temperatures, and because of the depth of this lake, it is mostly unexplored. So you've got these 7 divers going down doing general reconnaissance, I suppose, exploration activities. They're diving at a depth of 50 metres when suddenly they encounter a group of large humanoids, not humans, but humanoids, 9 foot tall, they reckon, wearing silvery suits, some form of helmet, but no tanks or breathing equipment that they could make out. This report goes, I mean, I've got to say at this point, it's a surprisingly candid report, this. You know, and you can almost imagine the horror that these divers would have experienced in that situation. But they attempt to do something I don't think I would do. Very, very brave or stupid or both. But they tried to capture one of these humanoids with a net.
And that didn't go too well, did it?
It didn't go down particularly well, as you would imagine. And some unknown force, they don't know what it was, but some unknown force propels them back up to the surface. Bear in mind, from a depth of 50 metres, so they're down a long way. This force suddenly propels them upwards very rapidly to the surface.
For our American listeners, that's deeper than 150 feet, so you really do not want to be coming up from that depth at speed if you can avoid it.
Well, no, indeed. And have you ever been diving, Neil?
Yes, I have. And I've been down to 30 metres, which is about 100
That's
feet.
pretty deep.
Yeah.
You feel it at that. I was fortunate when I was 16 years old. I went diving at the Great Barrier Reef. I don't think I got anywhere near 30 metres.
It's quite shallow there, isn't it, the Barrier Reef? Most places you can get to the bottom with a snorkel, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this was proper with the tanks and everything, and we did sort of dive down, but
just something about the dimension of this Lake Baikal. That we mentioned how deep it is. Its surface area is bigger than Belgium, and it contains more waters than all the North American Great Lakes combined. So it is a vast expanse of water. It's 23% of all the fresh water in the world, all the surface fresh water.
It's huge.
Yeah, so
absolutely
this is
huge.
a place. I mean, we still wonder about Loch Ness, which is a relatively small
relative to this particular lake we're talking about. But Loch Ness itself is absolutely huge. That's not a small thing.
It's huge, and it's very, very deep. I mean, you can see these cliffs coming straight up out of it. They presumably they go down just as far, just as quickly.
Indeed.
But this is another degree altogether.
So coming back to these divers suddenly coming up to the surface very rapidly, and the reason I asked if you'd ever been diving, so you would be familiar, Neil, as would presumably many of our listeners, be familiar with decompression. When you come from a deep dive up to the surface too quickly, you get something called the bends, and it's pretty serious stuff. It can cause lots of serious problems. And sadly, of these 7 divers, 3 of them died.
As a result of being propelled to the surface?
As a result of decompression. So it's quite a serious business that, they've been propelled like this. But what do we make of this report? I mean, let's look, first of all, at the fact that this report has come out. It's an official government report.
Yeah, and it must have... I mean, there was a period, wasn't there, in Russia when the Soviet Union had fallen apart and Russia seemed to be, at one stage, eager to become a Western democracy. And all sorts of things were declassified, and I think a short time later, when they realised, actually, no, we're not. We're gonna go back to being pretty much what we were before. We're just not going to call ourselves communist anymore. And suddenly, a lot of stuff was classified. So around about 1990 would have been during that period when that period of glasnost of openness.
Well, this doesn't come from then. This report was declassified in 2009.
Okay,
so quite a bit later.
So well into the Putin era.
Yeah. Which makes it even more curious.
Yeah.
And like I said, this report wasn't on its own when it was declassified. There were others as well. But I thought this story of the giant humanoids was a particular interest.
We mentioned in a previous episode about how if you lived on another planet that had less gravity than Earth, you would become taller. If you lived somewhere like Mars,
yes,
you would be taller. Well, these creatures are 9 foot tall and humanoid, and obviously, apparently wearing some kind of suit, some kind of protective suit, like a
Well,
So
that's what the divers described was some sort of silvery, tight-fitting suit. Now that to me sounds like a wetsuit, like the tight-fitting thing. But
or a dry suit. You probably want, but something that completely keeps out the water, especially at those kinds of temperatures. But so I mean, being humanoid, that's not the best. That's not the best shape to be for living underwater. That's not a very efficient shape for swimming around. It's if a swimmer is told they can swim like a fish, that's regarded as a great compliment because, we are not built to swim like fish. So these don't seem to be naturally aquatic creatures, and there are all sorts of strange creatures have been discovered in the depths of Lake Baikal. Just as they have been in the Mariana Trench, these great depths that we know so little about. This one just happens to be an inland freshwater lake.
Well, yes, but it's interesting. So when they talk about these humanoids wearing some form of helmet, that implies that these are not creatures that evolved underwater.
No.
But let's think for a moment. If there is an extraterrestrial species that wants to come and visit the planet, especially if they wanted to come and put bases on the planet to either observers or use this as a staging post, or maybe this is like, I don't know, your local Texaco where this is just a refilling station for UFOs.
Yeah.
Who knows? Underwater is going to be the best place to do it because the sentient life's not going to see you, it's not going to be aware of you. If you've got the technology to withstand the great pressures of being underwater, which if you can do interplanetary travel, I've got to believe that being under a bit of water is going to be fairly easy to deal with.
Well, I mean, they would want to be avoided. They would want to avoid contact with humans. That would be the only creature on this planet they'd really be keen to avoid, I would have thought. There is intelligent life at the depth, so whales are pretty intelligent, but obviously they're obviously not too fussed about UFOs.
Well, am I right in thinking though that whales and dolphins, I believe, are an intelligent species? They can't go that deep underwater.
No.
So
no.
Even that, and let's look at the size of water as well. Well, you don't get any whales or dolphins in freshwater either. So this Lake Baikal is looking like an ideal place to have a UFO base. You said that there's lots of strange creatures being found in Lake Baikal. What's to say that they're terrestrial?
Yeah.
If you're setting up an alien base, why not make it home away from home and bring your own, flora and fauna?
I mean, it's obviously an environment that they can adapt to. They can live down there, but not naturally if they're having to wear these special suits.
No, but that's fair enough. Again, if you're forming a base, you wouldn't need to be naturally underwater.
So, and of course, we don't have the technology to have something that can enter the Earth, can fly in space, enter the Earth's atmosphere, and then dive to the bottom of an ocean or a deep lake. But we don't. Just because we don't have that technology doesn't mean it's not
we
possible.
have technology that can take us into space and bring us down and put us at the bottom of the ocean, just not safely.
Yeah.
Not survive.
Not on purpose.
Yeah. But yeah, so absolutely fascinating. I mean, how much, and also what was going through these divers' mind, when they try and capture one? What on earth were they thinking?
Yeah, I suppose they didn't know what they were dealing with. I suppose they were relying on hand signals to decide what to do. I mean, they obviously went down. I mean, they had a net,
So they must have gone down there with some intent to capture something. Did they have an inkling there was something down there that...
Well, their role was to go and investigate and to explore. And yes, I would imagine that they would take a net so that if they found something of interest that they wanted to bring back to the surface for further examination, a net is the perfect way of doing it, because you don't want a bag, because that's going to take all the water with it and create drag. Nets don't create the drag, but they, will carry things.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
what could have sent these divers hurtling to the surface? A great big bubble of air suddenly produced.
Again,
I mean, it probably wasn't an explosion, because that would have had a more obvious effect on them.
Well, a lot of the reports of UFO technology, when you hear reports from people like Bob Lazar, who reportedly reverse engineered alien spacecraft, and the way they're supposed to operate, they work on gravity drive, so they work on technology that manipulates gravity. Now, if you can do that, if you have that technology, you can send someone hurtling to the surface in a body of water quite easily.
Just using your own propulsion system. Yeah.
But that also implies that they've got it on them somehow, that maybe you're into psychic, telekinetic abilities as well.
There's a story that goes back to the 1930s when I happened to be a paranormal researcher named Ilya Grabowski. This story is from the medium.com. How he was exploring strange happenings around Lake Issyk-Kul, which is located in the northern Tian Shan mountains. He'd heard legends about hidden caves in the area, so he contacted a local who had inadvertently stumbled onto one. At first, the man was reluctant to describe his experience, but Grabowski persuaded him to do so. So they found these caves, which were inaccessible, so they had to come back again with ropes and torches and pickaxe. The following day, exploring the cave, they made a startling discovery in its innermost sector. They discovered 3 human skeletons, each one measuring more than 10 feet tall. Around their necks, each skeleton had a silver amulet in the shape of what the men described as bats. Apparently there have been several reports describing UFOs of that shape. Now, what happened to these bodies with their amulets?
Well, that's a good question.
Where are they now?
I would be inclined to suggest, pure speculation, that a government has them somewhere.
Yeah. Even more intriguing is a local Kyrgyz legend that references a sunken city on the bottom of Lake Issyk-Kul. The last ruler of the ancient city had been a king Osunis, a giant with long ears. The legend also mentions that Osunis was able to fly between the mountains in the blink of an eye. Oh, here we go. The discovery frightened the men enough to keep silent about it for years, but not enough to leave the silver amulets behind. They melted the jewellery and sold the silver, but kept a small fragment as a memento. No photograph of this fragment survived to this day, but Grabowski would later write that the Soviet scientists who got the chance to examine it were unable to determine its exact age.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is all this evidence that just... he rummaged through local archives and found that the earliest mention of similarly gigantic creatures dated back to the mid-1800s.
But you have some interesting parallels, and I'm glad you've raised this story, because it's not an uncommon story. These giant people, 9 foot, 10 foot tall, coming up from deep lakes and deep bodies of water. Now, I don't know about this one you refer to, but Lake Baikal is a UFO hotspot.
Okay.
So you get a lot of UFO activity around there, and you do in fact get UFO spotters coming up and around. Now it's as you say, it's a large area in of itself, but it's a common theme you get quite a lot with you in ufology. These large bodies of water that are very deep, you get UFOs coming in and out of them. You get sightings of strange creatures. Yeah.
I can think of a much earlier sighting of giants in that region, and that's if you look at the Mappa Mundi, which I think is in Salisbury Cathedral. There are copies of it around. There's a copy in Dover Castle. They have a copy in the Tower of London. And it's a strange map. It's orientated with east at the top and west at the bottom. I guess that's what orientation means. Find your east. It's not a map that you'll want to navigate by. It shows the known world at the time, which was Europe, Asia, and the north part of Africa. That was all that was known about. So it goes from the Garden of Eden at the top of the map in the east, all the way down to the Gates of Hercules, which are the Straits of Gibraltar at the bottom of the known world. And there are all sorts of strange creatures. A rhinoceros is drawn to look like a unicorn. There are these men who apparently have no heads, but their faces are in their torsos. There's a creature called the honeycomb, which can shoot flaming turds out of its rear end, so you don't want to get behind that. But then, and the men with feet, they've got such big feet that when it's a hot day, they can just lie on their backs and lift their legs up and shelter in the shade of their own feet. But over in Asia, in this exact region, basically Siberia, giants. There are giants on the Mappa Mundi in Asia. So,
yes. So how much of that is imagination and
somewhere.
How much is led by perhaps folk tales or...
I mean, you wouldn't want to navigate by the Mappa Mundi. I mean, Jerusalem's probably in the right place at the centre of the known world. You can see where Moses parted the Red Sea and wandered in the desert for 40 years. You can see where the Tower of Babylon is, and the Garden of Eden. But don't try and find your way by it. And all sorts of sea creatures, all sorts of sea monsters that account for missing ships.
See, that
mainly in the Mediterranean.
A bit of speculation as well that when ships go missing unexpectedly, and of course the mystery of the Mary Rose, are these ships that have encountered alien bases or alien,
you mean the Mary
UFOs?
Celeste?
Mary Celeste, yes.
Mary Rose just overturned in plain sight.
I remember the raising of the Mary Rose when I was at school.
But the Mary Celeste, a ship found with everyone just gone.
Yeah, and
never seen again.
Places set for meals, untouched. Yeah, very bizarre situation. No sign of anybody. No sign of any emergency. Just people gone. So
even when people have tried to speculate as to a theoretical answer of what may have happened, that some decided to go swimming, someone got into trouble, more people jumped into helm. That doesn't explain everyone gone.
Well,
every single person jumped off the ship and got left behind by it.
And you wouldn't have the stuff left undisturbed the way it's undisturbed. Yeah, it's a very, very strange mystery. That would be, yes, Mary Celeste. Mary Celeste. So are we talking about alien intervention there? Are waters of this planet, I mean, so we're talking about aliens, maybe, and this is pure hypothesis now, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just a more evolved terrestrial species that don't want to have contact with us.
Maybe it just seems humanoid doesn't seem a very good form to be living in water.
Well, no, but perhaps they're humanoids who developed on land and then went into the waters.
I mean, I know that we as humans aren't naturally adapted to be top of the food chain on the surface of this planet. that we have all sorts of our main advantage over the rest of the kingdom, the animal kingdom, is the size of our brains, and the fact that we can build these defences, build these weapons, just naturally. Pretty much any animal is stronger in tooth and claw and better armoured and can take us down.
I thought it was our opposable thumbs.
Which
enables us to use tools.
It enables us to use tools, but you always have a bit of a brain to use them. I mean, we are the only creature that's moved up the food chain. At one point, humanoids were, Homo erectus is probably way down the food chain, hunted as prey, whereas we're not. Unless you happen to be very hapless or unfortunate, you're not likely to end up being hunted as prey by another animal.
Indeed. Well, let's hope that that these giant humanoids do not see us as prey. Let's summarise what we think then. So about this particular story from Lake Baikal in 1982. What do you think then, Neil? Was this a story you'd heard before? Like I say, it was only declassified in 2009, so just 12 years ago now. Or 11 and a half years as we record this.
Yeah, it's
had you heard it before?
It's a funny one. I mean, I do believe that there are all sorts of creatures down in the depths. We haven't conclusively proven the non-existence of the Loch Ness monster. People still believe in it. And Loch Ness is a much smaller body of water than Lake Baikal or the Mariana Trench. The giant squids. No one's ever seen one alive, but they have found a dead one. The kraken that would sometimes rise to the surface and take down ships. I had a book when I was a kid of mysteries of the was it Stranger Than Fiction or something like that. It had a picture of this sort of 16th century or 15th, 17th century sailing ship with giant tentacles wrapped around it, being dragged down into the depths or voiced to the bottom of the sea. So. Yeah, I believe that there is life down there that avoids us, but could present a real threat to us. But humanoids, it seems really, really strange. I don't know. See, and the fact that this evidence then disappears, this evidence from these caves.
Well, that's a different story, though. We're talking about the Lake Baikal.
Yeah, but it's still these 10-foot tall humanoids found, skeletons found in caves, and with amulets around their necks that in the shape of bat-shaped flying saucers, which of course they melted down rather than prize them for their scientific value. They're just it's made of silver. Let's melt it down and make a few bob. Melt it down for scrap. Why would you do that?
But that's a different story. We're talking about Lake Baikal.
Lake Baikal. I don't know. It's an odd story. I can't discount the deaths of divers by something they've encountered down there. Hard to say. It's hard to imagine the Soviet Union tolerating aliens on its within its borders.
I don't know if they were Navy or not. I honestly don't know. I think possibly they were Russian Navy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm on the fence with this one. Don't know.
Okay, well, I'm absolutely convinced that this is a genuine report. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Why would Russia, the Russian government, have basically validated this story, and why would they make it up? That's to what end? What would they have to gain?
Do you know, when I was searching this, and the only UK press outlets I could find that had reported this were The Sun, the Daily Mail, and the Daily Express, the three least reliable outlets.
I know.
Not just in Britain, but possibly in the developed world. You know, we're talking for our American listeners. We're talking National Enquirer type credibility here.
But more Fox News, I think. Yeah. But But no, why? I can't think of a single reason why the Russian government would make something like this up. So I'm absolutely convinced that this is a genuine report. Whether these humanoids are aliens or transdimensional beings or whatever, that I think is something that remains to be seen, but I am absolutely convinced that they're real, and that's where they are, because that would be a fantastic place for them to hide.
The perfect place to hide, yeah.
But what do you think, listeners? Is it all a load of nonsense? Is it the deranged ramblings of someone who's hallucinated? Or is there perhaps even more to this story that we've missed? Do let us know by the usual channels of Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or by visiting aliensexplored.com. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, do please take the time to leave us a quick review on wherever it is you find your podcasts. Apple Podcasts is a favourite, but wherever you listen to us, do please leave us a review. Join us next time when... this is a good one, Neil. I am really looking forward to this.
Okay.
We will be discussing the famous alien autopsy film. So join us.
The alien autopsy film.
Yes, so join us for that one. In the meantime, keep watching those large bodies of water and the skies. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Figo Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored or visit aliensexplored.com.